Welcome to Owen and Brew's Barbecue. Today we are serving up, you guessed it, frog egg soup with a side of fried spider legs.
Ooh.
My name is Matt, and I'm joined by a chef that knows his way around the galactic endangered species laws. Nick?
I do. That's right. Yeah, and
Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, anytime. That medium rare crate dragon is also a nice little appetizer we've got planned.
It is, yeah. I mean, it was a toss up. I mean, but I'm going for the Baby Yoda crowd here.
Oh yeah,
So.
yeah. You think the spider legs should be crispy like a good crab leg, or you think it's going to be?
They're definitely fried by that X-Wing blaster.
Oh, absolutely.
So spoilers ahead for everything that happens in Chapter 10 of The Mandalorian. We're talking Season 2, Episode 2, The Passenger. So right off the bat, we usually talk about what we thought about the episode. So, what were your first takes on this?
I enjoyed it for entertainment wise. I felt that there wasn't a lot of meat in this episode. There was a lot of things to eat, but not a lot of meat.
I like that.
Yeah. I was happy with some of the things that we discussed last week. That was like, oh yeah, that's where Matt and I thought it was going to go. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. It's kind of like how in the first episode, though, we really enjoyed the first episode, but as in plot wise, it didn't push it forward a lot.
Mm-hmm.
This one I felt was kind of a continuance of that, in that it's more like a setup episode to kind of give us a little bit of like, what is he doing now? And then this third episode, I think, is going to be a nice little like, oh, now we're getting a connection to somebody,
In some ways, it almost feels like an echo of Season 1, where, stay with me on this, it was Suka themed. Suka.
Right,
it was
right.
egg themed. I mean, the
Right.
second episode from Season 1, it felt kind of like just like a transition episode.
Mm-hmm.
Focused around an egg.
An egg, yeah. You're right. I didn't think about the eggs, plural, in the single egg, but you're right. Yeah. But I'd said that. Remember, I said that last week too. That it did feel like some things were echoing Season 1 here, and so I hope that it's not a continued theme throughout the entire season. But
right, because then we're gonna get to season or episode 4, 5, and 6 and be like, come on.
Oh, okay, yeah, they're there. Oh, we got like a village to save. All right, cool.
Yeah. So my take or my first reactions to it, I think I may have shared this already and maybe the exchange on our messaging. But as a family, it's kind of nice because Friday nights, the kids are done with school. It's like, hey, it's family Friday night. We're gonna sit down to have some dinner and watch this show. And my wife wanted Chinese, and I said, hey. Let's not eat the Chinese and watch this episode. Because remember last episode with the vomiting acid? And my wife was like, yeah, you're right. We should probably just eat because she had it all set up like we were going to do like TV dinner style, like, like let's watch and eat. And I was like, so we ate the Chinese. And then I feel vindicated that as it happened, we were like, yeah, good choice on that. It was interesting, because I have a little audience that I can kind of like see, engage their reactions to, specifically my kids. And at the end of it, they were like, my son specifically, he was like, we need a good episode. That was his reaction. He was like, we need a good episode. And he said, I hope the next episode's better. So he was a little bit more let down by it.
And does he mean good? I mean, because like there was definitely some people that I had read that complained about it because they thought it was dark in tone. Now, does he mean good as in like a lighthearted episode, or does he mean like just a straight up like action episode, or like?
I didn't press him on that.
Okay.
But I think that there was probably a little bit of both there. The fact that it was a little darker and scarier, and then there was that aspect of like, I think he wanted more of that satisfying meal that you talked about. Like the first episode, like felt like a rounded out, there were certain, it was definitely one of those episodes too, that they were like, I don't think we're going to watch that one again for a while.
No.
So that was their initial, like.
Well, it reminded me a lot of Harry Potter. I think it's the second movie or the third movie, one with the spiders in the forest. And that's what, he gets there, you see the big one pop up over the thing, and then like all the little ones are chasing. It was like, oh, this is, and I even, like my sister, after she watched, she's like, what'd you think? And that was my immediate response, was like, why couldn't it have been follow the butterflies? Because that's what Ron says as they're going into the forest. It was like, this is like Harry Potter,
I didn't pick up on that, that pop culture kind of connection there, but, on rewatch and even just my reactions to it, there were things that I did enjoy about it. So it wasn't a complete, blow off episode for me. I wouldn't say that it's, my favorite. I did fall into that camp of you could see that once and you're like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not much that happens.
There's not. And what does happen in some things, and we can get into it, it's just like they would show some things and they kind of led nowhere, or it's like, oh, was this just like a throwaway 5 minutes? Like, what is this about? I mean, unless you go back and explain it or like come back to it in another episode, then it's like, what's the point of having this scene? I don't want to say like I'm being negative, but because I did enjoy it. But
yeah, well, and in the other person that I always talk to about these episodes, much in the same way, like you talk to your sibling, I talked to my brother. And, he was being the Boba Fett fan, was definitely disappointed that we didn't get more Boba Fett.
Well, I wasn't surprised there.
I wasn't either, but there was a part of me, I guess, with the tagline of saying like that he's got a, there was something in the tagline for this episode, or the description, I should say, not the tagline, but the description, where it said that he's got a special passenger or something like that, or I can't remember what it says, but so for me, reading that, I was like, oh, maybe it's going to be Boba Fett. Maybe he's going to take him somewhere, it'll lead somewhere. And I'm probably reading a little bit more into that, but there was that aspect of as the first episode ended and you see Boba Fett kind of watching, the Mandalorian ride off, I was kind of thinking, well, is he going to follow him? Is he going to catch up with him? Is there going to be a little bit of an interaction here that says I don't know. So then even as this episode began, I kind of thought, well, how is Boba Fett going to even catch up to him? And so then you see this wrecked speeder. So then that kind of led me down the path of maybe we will get something more. And I was fine. I don't want this to become the Boba Fett show, or even the Mandalorian and Boba Fett show. Mm-hmm. But I guess when you tease a character like that, you kind of think, when will we see him again? Like, I don't know if that was just kind of like a one and done, like, here he is, he's alive, people, and now he's gone. Like, it seems kind of weird to introduce the armor, the character. I think maybe it might be more of a long play for the season, perhaps.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't even see him again this season. If we do, it'll be at the very tail end. Because I can see it be some situation where he's kind of like he was at the beginning of this episode, like he gets in trouble, but this time he's really in trouble. And then kind of like how Obi-Wan rescues Luke, it's the same thing. Like all of a sudden you see that, the gaffy stick, like just come and hit somebody over the head, and then there's Boba Fett,
Yeah.
Helps him out. I mean, but who knows?
So not a complete write-off for me. And I don't always pay a lot of attention or buy into the IMDb ratings, but I do kind of look at them and just kind of see like, okay, well, what are the fans and the people that have watched this ranking this? And so currently the Passenger is ranked at 7.9, with Chapter 4, The Sanctuary, still being the lowest ranked one on IMDb at 7.8. So, oh wait, no, I'm sorry. The Gunslinger was 7.6. So the highest still is Redemption at 9.3.
Yeah. That's what I was going to guess, somewhere around 7.8, 7.9 or 79, whatever you said, like I actually like the Gunslinger. I mean, I remember when we discussed it a year ago, I wanted more of that episode. I felt it was kind of shoehorned in there. The ending, especially, I felt it could have been a 2-part episode. And that's my only disappointment with the episode, really, is that I wanted more from it. Like, to introduce this really cool bounty hunter / assassin, and then to kill her off at the end so like randomly, and you're like, oh man, they could have gone so many places with that. It would have been so cool, and they didn't.
Right. But I do remember us talking about that and just the possibilities that were kind of truncated by that setup. Mm-hmm. Well, let's dive into this episode and kind of the flow of it.
Yeah.
Or did you have some notes that you wanted to?
No, just starting with the episode. Like, I actually loved the opening scene a lot because you have this wide angle shot of just the speeder bike in the distance coming right at the camera.
Yeah.
And I thought that was such a cool shot. I actually wanted them. I felt they ended it too soon. Like, I wanted it to I would have liked it if it would have blown past you and the camera would have followed it around to show him like riding past you, like as in like a point of view kind of shot. I thought that would have worked really well, but I mean, still, I just loved it because it kind of reminds me of any desert shot. You have that really kind of like
hazy,
yeah, on the horizon. You're like, oh, that's so cool. And then you hear the sound coming in, and and it's like, yeah.
Well, and just a little personal note here. My little notification on my cell phone, my ringtone and it's only for texts. So if I get a text, it is the speeder bag. It is the speeder bike. Boom!
Cool.
And so, but like most sound effects, as you add it to your ringtone, every time you hear it now, you're like, wait, am I getting a text or is this in the show?
Right. Yeah. Like I only have one. It's only for my sister. She's the Imperial probe droid. So every time,
nice.
That's the sound that she has. I'm like, oh, there's my sister.
Yeah. It's interesting how we all fall into the Pavlov dog, kind of rule when we hear those certain noises now. So for a while, I mean, a long time ago when ringtones were first a thing, I think I had the Paint It Black, the sitar to Paint It Black as like and it kind of almost ruined that song for me. So I had to just kind of kill it. Cause it was just like, every time I heard that, it was like, okay.
Yeah. The only one I had, not to get too sidetracked here, people, but, I had, I had Ashes to Ashes for a while for mine.
Oh yeah.
And I liked it, but I remember Jay, we were in San Diego and he heard it, that, and like Jay just looks at me and goes, dude, you got to change that. It's like, it's so annoying. And I'm like, fine, which I did see his point, because it was every message, it was just constantly hearing Ashes to Ashes. And you're like, okay.
Well, if you enjoy Nick and I rambling about the most random thing, join us on RCAD. That is the Ramblecast After Dark. We talk about everything and we do get more explicit. So. And there's 2 other guys, I guess. I don't know.
Well, sometimes.
If
we let them talk. Yeah. So, we see the speeder bike going towards Mos Eisley, and we see an ambush getting set up, which I thought was neat. That could be pretty cool. We see them bury the trip line, and I'm already getting images of, indoor with the Ewoks, speeder bikes. Yeah. I'm like, okay, what's going to happen here? Is it going to cut him in half? Is it going to not throw him off? Like, what happens? But he does hit him. It propels the bike and Baby Yoda forward. And then, of course, having a jetpack, he's quick to think and he ignites it, but does come crashing down hard on his legs. Most likely probably would have ripped an ACL, but this is the Mandalorian here. So,
well, I mean, specifically for that part, I mean, in that very brief moment, if you're, especially on second watch, you see him use the controls on his arm, and I like that because of the payoff. Mm-hmm. So it's right there. It's all explained. So, and of course, Baby Yoda falling. I mean, who wasn't like, no, Baby Yoda?
Because that would have hurt, and especially as little as he is. But anyway, he just rolls forward and he seems to be okay. But this scene kind of threw me off a little bit, and I wanted a little bit more from it because at first I just thought they were robbers, like anyone else on Tatooine. It's like opportunists, like, oh, we're going to take his bike, we're going to take his money, we're going to take whatever. But it almost seemed like they had a purpose, but they don't really get into it at all, because that's the first thing you hear is the two big guys look at what I assumed was a Jawa that was unmasked, because he kind of had that same build and almost kind of had that same language. But they look at him and say, like, get the child, which I'm like, wait a minute. So are they getting the child because maybe they're after the bounty, or do they just think it's important to get the child because that's a vulnerable spot? Like, I don't know. And I kind of wanted some kind of information here, because it doesn't happen.
I think the only thing that we can be like to I guess, with the clues that we were given and the fact that he bargains with, I have it written down. There is no way that Scrapjaw Motito, who is seen in The Force Awakens.
Right.
And again, we're not quite clear. I don't think there's any verification if it's the same actual character that's in The Force Awakens, or if it's just, this is, because it's like, is this an alien? Is this what all these Scrapjaw locals look like? Or is that an actual bounty hunter, and that's his gig, like that's what he actually, or character, not bounty hunter. But with these thugs though, one of the trivia notes that I have here, one of them has a Hoth insignia on its arm.
Oh,
so I thought that was interesting, like, why a Hoth insignia, and why, it's like such a random thing that would, so, the Nikto has a name, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. You can look it up on your own. Come on, Wikipedia. Like, let's just have a pronunciation right after like these complicated words. Get somebody from Lucasfilm Storyboards or Lucasfilm, get one of the holocron keepers to like help you out. Like, let's get some pronunciation on
get it out there phonetically, because there's too many vowels. I can't, and hyphens and
you put in those the apostrophe on some of these things, and it's like, how am I supposed to pronounce that? So, but yes, I think just because he's able to barter, makes me believe, but I mean, how would they know that he's coming? I mean, they're clearly
right.
I don't know. I mean, it does raise some questions, but he's able to barter at least with this Scrapjaw to take anything that he wants. And of course he takes the backpack, which ends hilarious because I love the interaction here between the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda. Like, one, Baby Yoda is just like coming to him, and I feel like this is a growth between the two characters. You see this in this episode. If there's one thing that we can point to of like, what are we getting, and we're actually seeing their relationship grow. There's multiple times in this episode where their interactions become more father-son,
right?
And I really enjoy that aspect of this, specifically like, Baby Yoda wanting, like, or the child, we'll call it, wanting, help, and then him picking him up. And there's a really cute, like, photo screen grab somebody did of Baby Yoda holding his thumb, which is just so sweet, because that's something, But yeah, like
that's cool.
Yeah, like he's holding his thumb when Mando's holding him in his like arms there. And there's just that funny interaction where he looks up at him as
like after
and he kind of, he does. It's like, it's all visual. And I love that because, as Mando, and we've talked about it from season 1, it's like everything's emoted through that suit.
Right.
Speaking of the suit and what takes place after this, wouldn't you just die?
I actually have that written in my notes here. It's just like, you see him walking into town with all the gear through the desert. And there's like there's no AC built into this thing. He would be passed out. It's like, there's no way. all that armor and black underneath it. Yeah, you'd be sweating like crazy.
You would kill some brain cells at least. Like, I would expect him to not be able to speak Huttese after this, which he seems to only have a very minimal grasp of Huttese from what we learned later.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true.
It just seems like a broken kind of Huttese.
Speaking of Huttese, though, like, did you notice the 4 letters that were above the cantina this time?
Yeah.
Those were not, I never said it right. The normal letters, though. I couldn't make it out.
Yeah, the Urabesh.
Yeah. Urabesh. Yeah, there weren't that. They were something else, and I assumed it was Huttese. But I was like, oh, because I was overlooking it, going like, oh, I don't know how to translate this. I was like, what is this? And it was 4 letters, so it makes it even weirder. Like, I'm like, it's not cantina and it's not bar, so like, what could it be?
Well, and it's not Chowman's Cantina, which is what it's always been referred to from the original trilogy. So, my only thought, and this relates back to my own personal journey of learning Japanese, is that at times letters can come together and form kanji, and the kanji is actually like the symbol that stands for something. So that was kind of my like quick take on it. I was like, well, whether or not it's still Chowman's or not. But yeah, I'm glad that you thought it, because I was like, wouldn't he just be dead? And by the way, like, no one's out here. Take off the helmet, man.
For real. I mean, we didn't even have to see his face. You know, it could have just been like the back of his head, like, you know, or something. But it's like, at least he's got some common sense. You know, take it off. Like, come on.
Seriously. But he makes it somehow and doesn't die. Or I don't know, make up a pop-up tent with a dead tauntaun and just wait until it's nightfall. So,
tauntauns in the desert?
Well, there's a Hoth patch, so who knows?
True. I'm sure that's just an Easter egg. I'm sure that's just an Easter egg. You know,
just thrown in there for
see if people notice it.
I mean, who knows if the cloners patch is ever gonna like pay off? Right.
Yeah. So the first thing we see when he enters the bar, though, is another little kind of call out. You see a Gregorian at the bar, which I remember when Rogue One came out, you know, they made such a big deal. It was in like, you know, a video game, and it was in like some toys, and then like they only have like one scene in the entire movie where you actually see them, and you're like, oh man, I thought this was going to be like this cool new thing, and then you don't see them. But so I was glad to see. I was like, oh look, there's one right there at the bar, just drinking.
Yeah, and speaking of that species, the trivia that I had read about it, it points out that it's spiced. The color of its fur is spice stained, or it's similar to the spice stained fur that we saw of one in Solo. So there's one that appears in Solo named Senna, or Cena. Yeah. Again, help us out, Wikipedia.
You're right, though. Yeah, like this one was kind of like a light brownish color, whereas the one Rogue One is white.
Yeah. But you know, if you're spending that much time in the desert, like,
you're gonna be brown. Yeah, you're gonna be dusty.
Yeah.
Then I did. I mean, there's a lot of neat. I think, which kind of like you're saying, there's more physical acting in this one than verbal. Because even as he makes his way over to, so help me out, Pele Mabo. Yeah. You know, like he's just standing there with all of the gear, just like, I'm here. Yeah, like hello.
What'd you do? Kill him? You found a Mandalorian and killed him?
Exactly. Well, and then he gets technical. Oh, it wasn't a Mandalorian. You know, and I bought it. You know, I was like, oh, okay. And, you know, this was also a neat, you know, we see this ant, which I originally, on my first viewing, thought it was actually a shout out to A New Hope when we see a praying mantis in the cantina.
Oh.
But it's not. It's an ant, which I found out was actually a killick.
We don't know if it's Killick or not, but it is very similar. This is the Joiner King, the book that it's featured on. Now, this is non-canon, right? The Joiner King trilogy. I don't know if it's really called that, but you can see them on the covers. There's the third book, which is really cool. It has Leia holding a lightsaber, and you can see them. They're a little different than the ant person that we see, but is it referencing the Killick or not?
Well, what I later read was that the director of this episode was the director of Ant-Man. And so that was the reason why they probably threw that in there. It's just kind of like a little bit of like a hey, look at this. It's an ant, and I did Ant-Man. So
yeah, Peyton Reed. And the other thing that I had read was that we also see Dr. Mandible in the Gunslinger episode. So he is also in the cantina, apparently in the background somewhere. And I didn't go back to see where, but I was just like, oh, well, that's a cool callback.
He's a local. Yeah.
He's a local. He loves to hang out there and just play
his local bar.
Yeah.
Now this was the first kind of, other than like the non-explanation of the ambush was, he's explaining to everything that happened, and now he lost his only lead, to finding a Mandalorian. I felt this information was kind of volunteered up a little too easily. She's like, oh, your guy here knows where a Mandalorian is, but you need to cover his bet. And you're like, wait a minute, he's just gonna say like, I'm just gonna volunteer this information. I'm just like, oh yeah, like, I felt it was just too easy. And then he's just taking her for her word, that he's saying this stuff. It's like, and then he's out $500. It's like, what the heck? Or 500 credits.
400.
Oh, was it 400? I thought it was 500. Okay.
But I think it's the fact that he trusts Pelly at this point.
True.
I mean, of all the people, like, I mean, and maybe he shouldn't, because she's just like, later we find out she just meets this person who she vouches for.
Yeah.
So
I thought that was weird too, because it's like, well, what's in it for you if you're just trusting this person blindly? Because I wondered if she was getting a cut or something of something, or just, it was strange. I thought it was strange. Yeah, that whole interaction there.
So if he is Killick, she's able to speak Killick as well as Frogese.
The frog lady language. You got all that from that? I did love that, because that's what I was thinking too. It was like, whoa, like, cause she, that's all they do is a couple of grunts, and then she explains that whole thing to him. It was like, I'm glad he said it, because that's what I was thinking too.
Hey, we don't even know what the Hammerhead says in episode 4, but
he says, "I love your hair." Where'd you get that?
That's what I want to see, though. I want to see Hammerhead. Like, I think that would be
the hammer, the throat, if what do they call it? Starts with an I. That race,
Ithorian.
Ithorian. That's it.
Yeah. So they speak out of the side of their mouths or their heads.
So yeah, so they say like it all seemed very. I know that they only have so many minutes to work with this episode, but it's like, oh, he volunteers information. He's like, yeah, they'll meet you at the hangar bay. He's like, how do you know they'll meet you at the hangar bay? It's like, you just now said it. Like, have you talked to this person? Like, you're like, what's going on? That's just me being nitpicky. But I did like when they get back to the hangar, you see the crate dragon on the spit, by a treadwell droid cooking it on a pod racer engine. So it's kind of a nice little throwback to like just things that are very Tatooine. And I also
go ahead.
I was going to say, this is also, which I also found out later as well, is that this is the exact same setup from the Disneyland, Disney World, Galaxy's Edge. This is as a reference to that so I guess where you go somewhere to go get something to eat, it's called Ronto's Roasters, and they have that same thing, the pod racer engine cooking a slab of meat.
And I have not been to Galaxy's Edge, but that makes me excited to see that, though.
Yeah, nor have I. I thought that was really neat. Yeah. And there's also a couple of neat little things referenced just within just a 30 seconds right here, which I thought was really neat, because you see her come out going, I want it medium rare, I'm not a Rhodian. Which I thought was a very subtle joke at Greedo, because Greedo's well done. Yeah, he's well done.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
So I was like, that's funny.
Yeah. No, that's good. I like that. Yeah. So and then I mean, right off the bat, we also see how Baby Yoda is a meat eater. Like, I don't think he eats any vegetables at all. So
no. Yeah, because like you even see him later on when they crash and everything. He's got a little metal tin of stuff in there for him to eat, and he's just over there eyeing those eggs like, I don't want this crap.
Yeah, I don't want the rations. Yeah. So she introduces frog woman or frog lady, which I guess is frog lady is what she's known as. And
yeah, as far as I know, nothing about her species was ever said.
Yeah, well, she's endangered, so I did think
that's where the argument is, though, also as well, because she always claims that it's just the end of her line, like family. That's what I took it. It's like, it's the last of my family line, not the last of my species. And so I was like, oh, so it's not really important to anyone other than you that your eggs make it,
No, fair enough. But I did think, just looking back and in hindsight about this episode and where we are with the Mandalorian, just as a Star Wars community, when we first started off as Star Wars fans in the original trilogy, it's like you got Squid Face and Hammerhead and Walrus Man, and like it's just like all of these, and it's like Frog Lady, Yoda baby. Like it's like we're at this point where we're just throwing out what these creatures look like. So
there was one last little cute thing with Baby Yoda that I thought was really funny in this scene before they actually leave, is that while they're discussing and the frog lady puts the eggs on her back, you can see Baby Yoda. First he's looking at the crate dragon, and then as soon as the eggs make their first appearance, you see them in the jar there, like his attention just goes right to them. And if the shot is actually of the Mandalorian and I'm never going to say her name right ever.
Pelly.
The shot is at them, but if you look just a little bit pan right with your eyes, you'll see the frog lady entering in on the Razor Crest, and you see Baby Yoda, hightailing it, chasing her up that ramp, wow. And it's really funny because knowing what we know later, you see him, he is just, violently chasing after her, you're just like, that's so funny, he's after some eggs.
This whole setup too with the eggs, I thought it was interesting because we've all thought Baby Yoda's cute, he's innocent, but it's like we also see this toddler side of him coming through, or this kind of the mischief aspect. And
what I liked also, I liked that we actually heard Baby Yoda not really speak, but we heard more vocal from Baby Yoda in this episode than I think in any episode we've seen prior.
No, yeah, you're right. We do get some articulation and some words kind of being formed where you're like, okay, is he speaking his own language? Is he just verbalizing and trying to talk? Is this like the early formation of him trying to speak? So we I don't think there's anything else really to talk about on Tatooine that I can think of. Except for the fact that Pelly's like, wait, one more little concession, like she's always kind of like throwing one more thing, like it's free, but you gotta be, deliver this person. I'm not a taxi service. And sublight, and that's
But that also is not really explained either. That could have been a nice one line. It's like, why does it have to be sublight? Because they don't really explain that. I get it. Like maybe she thinks the eggs are delicate or something, but is it something? Why would light speed affect the eggs? I don't get it. They don't.
I don't know. The only thing I likened that to or connected it to is just the fact that pregnant women can't fly on airplanes at some point in their pregnancy. That's what I was like.
But then Padme flew and she was well into her pregnancy.
Oh, yeah. Well, but she's human. She's not frog. Maybe there's something that happens with those frog eggs. Like at light speed, they just pop. So.
Well, they're unfertilized. Yeah, they look like large olives at this point. They're just kind of green with a little red pimento in the middle. Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, oh. And then in the jar, it made me think that even more. It's like, oh, too much olives, in the jar. But go ahead.
I also had kind of thought like, is this because we don't know where Yoda species comes from. We've always thought that we've always connected Yoda to a swamp because of his first appearance in Empire Strikes Back. Maybe Yoda chose Dagobah because he's like, this reminds me of my home world. We don't know. But it does make me think about that though, and like, you know, if they're used to eating like things like eggs and, you know, kind of a more of a amphibious kind of nature. So
I'd always read about Yoda picking Dagobah, though. He picked Dagobah because he knew that a Sith had lived there.
Right.
And so him being such a powerful light side force user, if he set camp near the dark side concentration, that it would camouflage his presence on the planet, along with the massive amount of life that's on Dagobah. So,
yeah, well, and I think that was established in the Thrawn trilogy, The Heir to the Empire. I can't remember if it was specifically laid out as such, but they definitely talked about the dark side presence there. I want to say, at least with the cave, maybe, perhaps, but I could be wrong. And if I am, please send us an email at theforceswelldone@gmail.com. And at this point, I think we should just go ahead and throw in a commercial break and let you guys listen to this wonderful message. Whoo-wee, that was good. Hopefully it was about frog eggs. So one thing I had read, I don't know if you saw this trivia about the frog creature and what it was based on.
No, I didn't. No.
It was based on, and I have not seen this, you know, even though I've read and looked at a lot of the old comic strips and you know, Marvel comics, but there's a creature called Gribbet the Ribbit. I assume that it's supposed to be Ribbit, but it's Ribbit. It was a bounty hunter first seen in the Star Wars newspaper comic strip in 1981. So
okay.
I would love to see this image. I'd seen this trivia note out there, and I'm like, inquiring minds want to know. I want to see this, and I don't have access to that comic strip, so I couldn't dive into the archives. So I also wanted to make one like kind of correction from last podcast. I know I had mentioned that Sam Witwer was made a cameo in the last episode, and I was completely wrong about that. So I know I think I read about it like the day after, and I was like,
I knew we lost listeners for a reason.
the actor that I confused, or where I read this from, was actually Josh Marino. So that is the actual actor. So sorry if I led anybody astray on that one. So yeah, there you go. My bad.
So on the ship, kind of going back to what you were saying, you know, the frog lady tries to talk with him a little bit, the Mandalorian, and he doesn't speak her language, and then he kind of turns back to her, is like, "Do you speak Huttese?" To which what you were saying, like he doesn't really sound confident in his Huttese. He's just kind of like, okay, whatever. like, because she doesn't understand anything.
I took that also, you know, as someone who's late in life trying to learn another language just for fun. I also took it as to mean that he probably can hear it and understand it, but he might not be able to speak it as fluently. So, you know, it's like it's almost a broken Huttese there. So, which you'd think that, you know, with Huttese being such a, you know, thing in the underworld and as a bounty hunter, that he would be a little bit more fluent in that language, but
right.
Oh well. So, the scenes that happen on the ship, you know, basically, and maybe it's because he spent so much time in the desert and, you know, it was hot AF out there. He just wants to take a nap. I mean, and I relate to this so much.
Don't blame him. Yeah.
Yeah. So he gets basically the ship on cruise control and is like, peace out. And, this also sets up like where she left her pack in the cargo area.
I thought that was really weird too. It's like, if they mean so much to you, you're not going to let them out of your sight, you know?
Yeah.
And they weren't even like strapped down in the cargo area. They're just like, they're just on the floor.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that was so weird. I was like, okay, that's just really bad writing for convenience, or just really bad parenthood. I don't know.
Yeah, like at least strap it down if you're gonna depart with it and not have it with you. But yeah, I think my wife and kids, as we were watching it, they were like, "Why is she leaving it away from her?" But we do get the cute scene though where Baby Yoda is using the Force, and at some point you think, is he going to? At first, you're almost like, is he going to like use the Force to create life? Or
that's what, yeah, exactly. That was something because he does it. Well, I thought he did it twice, but he just does it the one time. But yeah, you see him like approach the jar and like touch it, and you see the eggs all float down to where his hand is, and that's what I was thinking too. Is like he's going to pull like a Darth Plagueis, thing here, and like maybe make this one egg, Force
hatch
sensitive or something. Yeah, who knows? Like, and I was like, oh, but no, that's not what happens at all. But
I did like, and I think that one of the reasons maybe that we get this sense of like, I don't know, like goodness as opposed to like carnivorous, the music. And I wanted to mention that, like, I think this is the first time that we get this little music theme coming through, which I feel is a theme that he specifically wrote for the child. It's very light. It's very optimistic and hopeful, and almost there's a little sense of wonderment as we hear it come through, and it's very I don't know. I felt that it was very specific to the child, and we hear it again later in this episode too. I think had I not been like watching it a second time, like just to kind of really kind of combing through the episode, I think I would have probably just ignored it and not really noticed it. But if you watch this episode again, or if you pick up the soundtrack on a streaming service to listen to it, it's a nice track. I liked it. I liked the music, and you don't really get a sense that he's going to eat, and but that's what we get.
Yeah. It was cute though, because like every time you see him do it, it's just kind of like just pops her in the mouth. Speaking of interesting sounds, though, I'm the only one I've noticed this, but because they go to sleep, and then what brings us back to the show is this incoming ship sound alarm, which is the exact same sound that you hear in A New Hope when the Millennium Falcon is approaching Alderaan, yeah, and then Alderaan, and the X-wing comes. I mean, the TIE fighter comes over the top, and he's like, "What's that sound?" He's like, "Got another ship coming in." Like that's the same sound, and it's like,
"Yeah, you're right."
I haven't seen anyone post about that. It's like it's the same.
No, you're right. It's funny because it's so Star Wars and it's so recognizable, and it just kind of plays in the background, like, "Oh, we know what that is. Like something's happening." And I wonder, like, is there a way that you can get that sensitivity? Like, because by the time he gets up there, like the X-wings are just coming up to him. Mm-hmm. So, is it set to be like so many, parsecs out, like to sense,
or ships? Just, something coming in out of light speed, in proximity. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now this was another little nitpick I had, is that they immediately knew the name of the ship. It was like, hailing the Razor Crest. I was like, well, how'd you know? Mm-hmm. How'd you know that it was called the Razor Crest? It's not like it's written on the side of the ship, Right. And obviously they don't have a transponder, so it's like, well, how did you know it was called the Razor Crest?
Yeah, I mean, I've always thought that the Razor Crest was
the kind of ship.
The name. I always thought. No, I'm with you. I always thought Razor Crest was the name of this specific ship, but this makes me believe that no, the Razor Crest is the type of ship, much in the same way that we call an X-wing an X-wing.
Right.
But but like Luke's X-wings, probably, maybe he nicknamed it Bertha, and Poe named his, Black Betty. Because he's got the black X-wing.
Yeah.
Cue Poe Dameron in the black X-wing listening to that song. So, Go ahead. No,
we see a familiar face. Oh, yeah, we see
this interaction here.
Oh yeah, so yeah, we see a familiar face here. Once again, we see Dave Filoni, who is now quickly becoming a legend in the Star Wars community, if he's not already. Once again, flying one of the X-wings.
And reprising the same role, but we actually get, I think, a call sign for him, which is Trapper Wolf or Wolf Trapper? Trapper Wolf.
Trapper Wolf, yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's one of those everyday things. Like if you've ever been pulled over on the road, that's what it felt like. It's like, oh, God, the cops are here. Just play it cool, man. Just play it cool. And get through this, And,
shut up.
Quit your barking. What was that?
My vac tube is acting up again.
Yeah, exactly. Which he actually called it a privy in this episode, which I thought was interesting. Yeah,
I have that in my notes as well. And maybe that's more of the polite term to call it is the privy and not the vac tube,
right?
Yeah.
But I kind of got a little bit of an eye roll just because it's like they were the rebels and now like they're the man, in this episode. Because it was just kind of like you always were the cool people, and now it's like, especially when they're like, when he explains to them, like, oh, this ship's pre-Empire, I'm not required to have a transponder, and they're like, well, you're under new jurisdiction now. You have to have one. Or like, I just want to go like big government. Boo.
Okay, Nick. But I wanted to point out, specifically that at the end, I feel like that they imply some type of libertarian justice here.
Yeah.
Like we're not going to bring you in.
We're not gonna.
We're not gonna help you.
Exactly.
It's like a net gain, net loss. Like hands off. So,
they saved his life. That was enough, I guess.
And perhaps, as they mentioned, that the ship matches this, the ship that is wanted for attacking the rebel prisoner transport ship.
Right.
So I like the callback and the connection to.
There was actually a lot of callbacks to episode 6 in this episode, but like to just continue on with the regular line though, like he says, may the force be with you, which I thought was kind of a funny thing because like you kind of wonder if it's one of those moments where like exactly like when you're pulled over by the cops and you're being super nice so you don't get a ticket. It's kind of like, you have a good day, officer. And it's like, yeah, okay. And then you just sign right here, like, gosh. And there's a little bit of confusion here because it was the same thing. Kind of like, like, oh yeah, one more thing. I should need to send us a ping. Which to me, I immediately think when I hear ping, I think sonar on a submarine. So I'm like, oh, but then it turns out it's more like a
transponder,
like a flight recorder type thing. So it tells you like where the ship has been, I guess, in its history.
It's like the license plate,
maybe. Yeah,
that's true. I mean, because that's we got to run your plates. Send us the license plate number. The other pilot. Captain Carson Teva or Teva, we don't know how to pronounce that, but played by an actor that was in Kim's Convenience. So if you haven't caught that show, it's a very funny show that follows a Korean family. My wife actually fell in love with that sitcom, and but he plays the father from that show, Paul, and I have it down here, but my handwriting is so bad, so I'm not going to murder his name. So
that's why I type it out.
You millennials with your.
I'm a millennial by 4 days. 4 days.
I kid. So I already teased you about the libertarian thing, so we'll move on.
So, but I did think it was. I did like this sequence though, because. Once they really start drilling him about everything, like, oh, were you around the prison break? Like you just see the S foils like open up,
Oh,
and
I love that. Yeah.
Oh, like, he's in trouble now, and then it just hits the gas. Like you almost want like a punch it Chewie moment, like
I think the thing that I like too here is similar to the first episode when I mentioned seeing someone wearing Boba Fett's outfit but immediately knowing that's not Boba Fett.
Right.
You see something happening in the background and you're like, ooh, like we know what's going to happen next. And so by the way, her eggs cannot survive light speed, but what happens next?
For real.
Begs the question, what can they survive?
Real. They're telling how many G's they were taking as they're just dropping into orbit, just
yeah. Yeah, seriously.
Speaking of, like, to me, I found that hilarious in some ways. I'm not full out gut laughing, but I did love the reaction of the frog lady, because it seemed to me like one of those like housewife type reactions of like, maybe she didn't want to go to light speed just because she doesn't like flying, and all of a sudden she's getting all this just like, what are you doing? Like, we're going to die type moments, because she's just screaming all over the place, and I thought that was hilarious.
And for the listeners that have not seen this, I shared this with our Owen and Brews message group here, but there is a very funny meme that is basically a Uber review, a 1-star Uber review that says, it's basically from the frog lady's point of view. It says, the driver nearly got arrested, took 5 hours to get to the destination, and we crashed at least 3 times with no seatbelt. Also, his weird green dog kept eating my eggs.
So true.
I love that. That cracked me up. So thank you, Star Wars fans, for making Star Wars fun.
So I don't know if you caught this or not. It took me quite a while to catch this myself. But the planet they're on,
yes,
the ice planet, is called Maldo Crease. Yeah, and the only way you know it is if you look at the dashboard on the Razor Crest, because it's written there as the location. It says it there, but it's in
episode 1.
No, but yeah, but I'm saying the language is in Arabish.
Aurebesh. Yeah.
And
I call it Aurebesh. Maybe it's Arabish.
Yeah.
So
that's you have to catch that. But yeah, you're right. It's the very first thing we see in episode 1, season 1 of the snowy ice planet. So we know this planet is dangerous just because of the weird walrus creatures.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I hadn't thought about that, but it was funny. I mean, I'm glad that we both saw that information about it, because when I read that today, I was like, holy, like that. It was just a nice, like, for one, we know that he's in the Outer Rim. We know he's only been patrolling these certain areas, and it kind of makes sense, like, him going from one planet to the next. It's not like he's going like all the way across the other side of the galaxy, to these other planets, that they're all kind of in this very close sector, essentially. So, but yeah, another callback that occurs in this episode. So
now, we had kind of mentioned, I think on air, maybe off air, I'm not sure, that we originally thought this planet was going to be Ilum.
Yeah, I think we were kind of like speculating, like, ooh, wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, because it would made sense. It is kind of an ice planet, and then you see this trench that he originally, after the aerobats in the clouds and everything coming down, we see this trench there that makes sense. We thought, like, oh, this could be where for
Force Awakens,
the Force Awakens, the First Order. This is where they put the new laser cannon and this whole stripper where they haul it out. It would make total sense.
Yeah,
but it's not. We end up getting a very much trench run type shot.
Hoth trench run.
Yeah. Of course, my mind immediately goes like, why would you chase him into the trench? Couldn't you just fly over the trench, just look down at him, go like, you're just wasting your time, buddy.
Here's a photon torpedo for you.
Yeah, down there.
By the way, this whole chase sequence, like, love the atmosphere, love the I mean, like, it looks great. I mean, the fact that we're getting X-Wings, the Razor Crest, flying through clouds, flying through this environment, this whole chase sequence was a lot of fun. So even for, the things that we can fault the episode on for, not going further with the storyline as much, what we are getting in these moments of action are really cool. Everything from the first speeder bike, booby trap thing that happens on Tatooine to this moment of, between the clouds and ice. So, he pulls some fancy maneuver, goes into like this little crevasse, and I can only assume that the engines and the weight of the ship is just too much for this ice. Breaks through, practically breaks the back of the ship, the backbone of the ship. And at this point, as I'm watching it with my family, I'm like, it took me like half a day just to fix like this broken latch on my truck.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at this like, how is this thing gonna fly?
Ever. Yeah.
Ever again.
I thought he was dead. Yeah. And that's what made me, I actually got another chuckle later on the episode where he goes out to fix it and he has like his little toolbox. You're like, yeah, right, buddy. Like, there's no way that little tool, you're going to need a bigger box, buddy. Like, it's just like,
my second comment to the family, I was like, wait, there's no AutoZone or there's no advanced auto parts. There's no for miles. Like, you've got nothing to repair. It's like I have to like order parts on Amazon just to get like this one little thing so that, and good luck if it's like, actually works, by the time it gets there. So, there is a little bit of, they're not letting us know that the ship is still workable. It's just that the hull is basically breached and broken apart, as well as the guns. You can see the gun turret actually like smoking in one of these shots. Because as I watched it a second time, I'm going through my mind like, okay, so how did the X-Wings find him again?
Yeah.
So two thoughts on that. One, he uses those detonators later to kill one of the giant spiders. Like he uses those three, creating a huge blast that surely should have been seen. And then my other thought was, and we know that Luke's X-Wing had this because as he approached Dagobah, he was looking for life forms and he had R2 scan. So that was my other thought, like perhaps one of their R2 units is actually scanning for life. So
both good thoughts. Yeah.
Well, I mean, as you're watching it and we are nitpicking and saying like, well, how does this and how did this, it's like filling in we're here to fill in the gaps for you people.
I mean, I think both are really, really plausible theories because, the explosion was big and you could easily see like an R2 unit going like, oh, we've detected
detected a major blast in this area. Yeah. So, his firing, with the flame torch and like all of the blaster shots wouldn't have been seen. But those three charges that he lays out, that definitely would have been enough to draw their attention back. And they knew that he was in that sector. They knew that he was in that region. So,
I know we skipped around a little bit. So later, when they come to and Frog Lady actually has her eggs back and everything, she shows him the eggs and in particular like a little device that's on it.
Yeah.
And she was trying to tell him, I guess, that it's too cold for the eggs to survive, is what I assumed. But I also thought it was weird, is like the number sequence that's on there. It almost looks like the Predator language. If anyone's a fan out there of the movie Predator, they're the same color red, and they have these little weird dashes. Like
I know what you're talking about.
And I'm like, it's like, wow, I was like, they're almost like Predator.
Yeah.
And it's not only like that's like there's another Predator thing I noticed as well that I wrote down in my notes. I'll get to.
You mean the alien spiders?
The alien spider, yeah. Like exactly. I definitely thought of Alien with the hatching and all that. I was like, oh, they just need to go.
Oh, for sure. Oh, totally. No, so we get. So he wakes up from the crash. She's basically laying there cold, because she is cold-blooded, being a frog person. And he helps her up. They find
fewer eggs.
Yeah. He's basically like, I can't make it out of here. I'm just going to sleep it off. I'm still tired. Right?
Right.
Like he takes one look around and he's like, sorry, lady. We're Which, by the way, if I've ever been frustrated about something, I just give up and take a nap. So I totally relate with him on this part.
Oh, man, I thought that was kind of,
it is strange.
I thought it was strange that he wanted to take a nap because he was sleeping
before
the X-Wings got there. Then he just takes a quick little thing. He crashes. He gets knocked out, so he's sleeping again. And then he wants to sleep some more. Like, what the heck, man? It's like, all you do is napping. So give her a little something, for the effort.
But this does set up, and it would have been almost interesting had they just sidestepped the get up, tell the lady shut up, if he would have just woken up to the robot voice, just jump to that, like
that. Yeah, I could see that. That would have been much better. I thought that was neat though. Because she wakes up to the voice of Zero, the droid from episode 6 once again. So we've actually had a couple of episodes. References back to episode 6 in this one. And it took me a second to realize who it was. I don't know why, but I was like, I've seen that droid. Where's it from? I'm like, oh yeah, Zero, the smart one that calculates it. But this is where she finally explains, this is the extinction of her family line, and of course she guilt trips him. Like that's always going to work. I thought you were true to your word. That the Mandalorians had a code.
But not only that, but she says, I guess that's just something they tell.
Oh right,
children or something like that. Cut to Baby Yoda's face, like
for real,
Daddy. Yeah. Like I really felt like, and again, I mentioned like the father-son connection, like here happening, like, and I guess the only thing that I would say that is worthwhile about him getting up and actually going back to sleep, which I still don't quite connect all of those dots, but you see that moment of her huddling with her, brood essentially, and Baby Yoda huddling next to him. And so you have this very much like, familial moment happening between both of them where they're kind of with their children. So, and then yet again later when he goes out, he's like, fine, I'm going to go out and fix it. I felt like every father could relate to this episode. Like, I don't want to go do this, but she's guilt tripped me into this. She's made fun of me in front of my child. I better go like take care of whatever it is. Goes out, he's working on, and then and I've also been in this situation. Hey, why don't you come help me?
Yeah.
You're talking to your child. You're like, instead of standing there, like doing nothing and eating eggs.
I feel we needed that scene with him just like holding the flashlight, or something, with Baby Yoda there. Just like, I thought you were helping. Hold the flashlight better. Caw. Then Baby Yoda crying because he's not doing it right.
yeah. Or the scene from A Christmas Story, where he actually bumps all the parts and you lose the bolts. But this is the scene that you were talking about though, where Baby Yoda actually like uses some language here, to get his attention. And there's also a really cool moment where Baby Yoda's eyes kind of like are like looking like they actually are squinting a little bit, and he's kind of like looking to see where she went almost. As he comes up and he actually uses his visor scanner to see the heat signature of the.
That's where I wrote Predator down again, because like this is the second time we've seen this, so it's like he turns on the Predator vision.
Predator vision.
You're just like just tracking you. Let's see here. What else we got here?
I assume that she also has some kind of heat sensor, because how did she know that there is this spa?
Yeah, a geothermal pool. Because it really didn't make any sense either. It's like, I could see it if she's like going to go. To me, it was a really dumb and risky move, for her to walk somewhere, because like I'm sure she was like, well, maybe I can find help, or maybe I can find something, but she's on a foreign planet that she's not equipped to survive on. He even told her it's going to get cold as soon as the sun goes down, which I'm sure was right.
Yeah.
And she just walks off with nothing but her little coat there and her eggs. And then she looks up though and finds this geothermal pool, which to me felt like a really weird kind of softcore porn scene. Like she's over there just kind of like just chilling naked in the pool there.
I think there is just that aspect. I'm relating it to the fact that she's cold-blooded. She's sensing heat or warmth someplace, and she's going towards that warmth, and that's how she found this pool. Maybe she didn't know what it would be. She's not thinking like, oh, it's going to be a day spa, but maybe she's thinking like, oh, there's warmth over here. I'm going to go see what that is.
It could have been like Yellowstone for all she knows. She could have put her hand in it. Could have melted her hand off.
No doubt. But instead she's just like, and these eggs can't go through light speed, but they can go into this acidic bath of some water that you have no idea, like if it has pollutants, mercury.
She has no idea. She must have had a pH kit on her or something.
Yeah, that's in that little tank that she has there. My other thought too with that little tank has had a reading of like 2 bars on it, so maybe she needed to get fresh water for it.
That could have been another good reason too. I assumed because they were blue that it was some kind of temperature warning of like, oh, it's too cold for these eggs to live. Because that's why else would she put them in the heated pool, and then. But who knows?
Good thing it wasn't chlorinated and it didn't have any, acid in it. So, Mando is basically like, come on, let's get out of here.
Let's get out of here. I mean, it was cute though, because you see Baby Yoda once again reaching for the egg.
Oh yes,
yeah, and it's very much a father-son type thing. Like, no, I said no.
Yes,
then
that was good. That
come on,
so,
Dad.
Like, I guess I can't eat these eggs, so I'm gonna go have a frozen popsicle egg.
Yeah. Now, I thought that was weird, too, because I almost, at first viewing, I thought he did the same thing he did with the eggs in the jar earlier, because he walks up to one specific egg, and I thought at first he was going to put his hand on it, but, instead he just rips it open, and he just happens to find the one that's dead. I was like, how did he know that one was dead?
I don't think it was dead.
You don't?
Okay. My understanding of this was that basically he opens up something that hasn't been born yet. I don't know why, but he opens up something that is basically like not ready to hatch. Mm-hmm. But because he kills it, that's the thing that triggers.
Okay.
That's the thing that triggers all the spiders to come.
Okay. I mean, it was just because when he opened it up, to me, it looked all crusty, and I was like, "Oh, is that one dead? Like a dead spider? Would be like all kind of like that." And then he eats it, and it looks crunchy. Whereas then, as soon as it pans out, they're all moving then, and they're immediately white-legged. Whereas then that one was like kind of brownish. So I don't know. Like
there was some green goo there too,
Yeah.
So I just again, I took it as like he's prematurely opening up and eating this spider, and then all of a sudden you start to see them wiggle, which love the effects of this. And I don't know if you saw the Ralph McGorry art for this.
I did.
Yeah. Cool.
Exactly that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So cool. This painting from I guess he started it in 1979, but didn't finish it until later. Really cool how this artwork has the eggs in there. We also see the spider laying an egg. Luke approaching, wearing his classic X-Wing outfit. The creature's information is all right there. The eyes, the weird legs, and
And this was supposed to be on Dagobah though, instead of.
Correct. Yeah. This was going to happen on Dagobah. He was going to interact. There was a lot of more stuff that Luke was going to interact with on Dagobah. I mean, there was like I'm trying to remember, but he was supposed to like, I'm just going to murder it. So forget about it. I'm not going to dive into it, but there was a whole other thing, like adventure that Luke was going to have to interact with before he even met Yoda on Dagobah.
Now, do you want to try to attempt to say the name of what these spiders are called?
I think it's Krykna.
Krykna? Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Or it's Krykna. It's Krykna or Krykna. That's
I like the first one.
Krykna. Yeah. Because it does look like cry. Now, here's the thing with the Krykna. We see them in Rebels. And in Rebels, they have 6 legs. But these ice spiders have 8.
Oh,
so
just a variety of the species.
That's how I understand it. So just like how we have Jawas with yellow eyes, and now we have Jawas with red eyes. I just think it's a different planet, different rules. Yes.
Yeah. For anyone out there that's interested, though, they were in season 2. The episode is called "The Mystery of Chopper Base" that they were in. So.
Really establishes, and for those that haven't watched Rebels, or for those that have, I think it really establishes something that Ezra is able to do with creatures, if I remember correctly. So,
but it does kind of, I think it's kind of setting up a familiarity, with seeing things from Rebels. that's going to kind of happen throughout this season. You're going to see a lot of these animated things now. See them in real film.
Now, I saw this on the Twitter universe or what have you, and I just have to say, like, I thought this was hilarious. But Ezra is the one character that could appear and call the child Baby Yoda because he's seen Yoda. And he's going to look at that and say, oh, that's a baby Yoda.
Huh. It's true.
Or Ahsoka. Ahsoka could as well.
True. That's true.
Because Ahsoka's seen Yoda. So, like, oh, it's a baby Yoda.
I don't think they'll
He's
ever
got
call
a
it
name.
It's got a name. Well, what is it? I don't know. He's only been with me for 2 seasons. I never asked him. It's just or whatever, gurgle.
As these creatures begin to hatch, and this was one other aspect of that I did enjoy, even though at this point in the show I am just like, ooh, like I don't care what you feel about spiders.
I hate spiders.
Yeah, like I think everybody has that just natural reaction. Like if you see a snake in the wild, you just immediately like, oh, like it just strikes fear into you. I liked how they depicted that there were all shapes and sizes of these. Mm-hmm. That there were different,
different ages. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they just come in everywhere.
Right. Well, one thing I wanted to say.
Go ahead.
I also know that back to the baby. I loved as well this scene after they're hatched, and you see just Mando and the frog lady like putting the eggs up. You hear this very much dad kind of cry.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Dad, I messed up. And just kind of scooting over to him. Then he just like picks him up. He's like, okay, let's get the heck out of here.
And we see the frog lady uses her special ability, which we had already seen her use her tongue when she was eating rations earlier in the episode. But she uses it to grab her clothes, and she gets dressed fast.
Very fast.
I was like, phew, those robes must just fly on really quick. I mean, it was sad that we didn't get to see her naked, but,
That's what I mean. That's why it's like softcore porn instead of hardcore porn. Because, she's over there bathing naked in the pool. It's kind of like, hey, look at me with my eggs. Like, woo-hoo. And then, she immediately looks at those clothes like, okay, playtime's over. Yeah.
And we get to see also a special ability that we didn't think that she had. But when she starts hopping, I'm like, all right, you just took her to the next level, and I dig it.
Yeah. It gets like, it's kind of like with our evolution, like from going from 4 legs or whatever to being bipedal. It's kind of the same thing. Like, with her, she's being bipedal because that probably shows some kind of form of intelligence or sophistication. And then all of a sudden for her to go back and be able to use her primitive or her natural ability to use all 4 legs, I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, it kind of shows she, do what you have to do to survive.
Yeah, like no, and I love that. Like once she started hopping, I was like, that's right, you get out of there. At first, he starts using the blaster, and I think it was even my wife who was just like, why doesn't he use the blowtorch?
Exactly. Yeah.
And,
I think everybody was thinking that.
Yeah. And then as soon as we see that blue flame pop up on his wrist, we're like, yes.
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, I wondered it's because he probably only has a limited amount of gas anyhow, for that thing. And because that's as soon as I saw them hatching, that's what my immediate thought was like, oh, get the blowtorch out. Just, very much aliens, just the whole thing. But then I think when the big one showed up, you're like, oh, there goes that idea.
Yeah. So then he uses those detonator charges, which again I think is one of those things that we can say that signals the X-wings that hey, we think we know where he's at. They get back to the ship, and it is just like a horror movie. They are just coming in every whip snitch. We get to see them shoot the spiders shoot the
like a web,
whatever. I mean, other than the creep out factor in this whole sequence, I do like how they set it all up. I mean, it was very well done. They're retreating and retreating and retreating until basically they are. This is it. Like they are basically in the cockpit. Even we didn't know that Frog Lady had a blaster, but she has a little pea shooter.
Yeah, she's packing heat.
Yeah.
She wasn't trusting anybody. Basically, she had like a little derringer. That's right. Because because I'm sure everyone at that point is like, no, not Baby Yoda, not Baby Yoda. You know?
Yeah.
And then one on top of his head, one next to him, and she's like, oh, it's her.
Yeah.
So it's cool. I mean, she might not have done that if she'd known he was eating her eggs. But
I think she was suspicious.
Well, especially at the end.
Oh yeah, because she gives him the stink eye.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're basically like hold up in here, and then they just take it to the next level where the big giant one comes in, and very Minoc-esque sucking on the glass, and we're seeing that like they're not too long for the world. When those legs start coming through the windows, I'm just like, that's it. Like, how are they getting out of this?
Yeah, that was actually probably my last little nitpick too, because you saw two of these legs come through the glass of the cockpit.
Yeah.
And then when it's all done with, he's like, I need to repair the cockpit at least just to get us into space. He's like, what?
Right.
How did you repair the glass?
Mm-hmm.
Unless you got a pieces of scrap metal to weld them over the top of them.
Right.
It's like, you're still not going to make it, airtight really. So I was like, well, how? I mean, that's just me being scientific. Like,
that was my thought, is that, he was just welding on top of like the actual, I mean, he's not welding it to the glass, but there's probably like some kind of a connector, you got a strut in which the thing can attach to. The X-Wings come in, as we've mentioned, make some fried spider legs. My daughter at this point is like, it's gonna be Sabine and Ahsoka, and I'm like, no, just hold your horses, girl. As I've also seen Deus X-Wing Machina, the ending, the Deus Ex Machina, but X-Wing Machina,
right.
because they come to save the day. It's just so conveniently, and we get this interaction between the X-Wing pilots and Din Djarin, like I said, I did like what he said, like, these are trying times, and basically we see the karmic debt payoff of the fact that he stood up and tried to save this person's life on the prison transport ship. So
Lieutenant Davin.
Davin Davin. But he saves that person's life in episode 6 or chapter 6, and now the payoff is that they don't save his life. Well, they do save his life, but they don't help him. They don't stay around. So
now did you catch the what they actually called the prisoner ship, its actual name? Did you catch what that was?
No.
So it's called the Bothan 5 is what it's called. And I was like, oh, because that is a shout out to the Bothan spies from Return of the Jedi.
Nice. No, I did not pick up on that. Speaking of the X-Wings, and we barely touched on it, earlier in the episode, though, when he says, may the Force be with you and also with you, I think that's the first time officially in a live action canon, like I've never heard that repeated back, and also with you.
Oh, right.
But that's something growing up as a kid that went to church.
Right.
There was always that, like, and also with you, like, and so peace be with you, and also with you, or whatever. There was a little thing that so I liked that part. I liked that little moment. So basically he's like, use the privy because it's going to be a long ride, and fixes the ship, and they're off.
Yeah, off to Trask.
Off to Trask. A shorter episode. The plot was simple, but we ended up talking about a lot of different aspects in this episode. I mean, there was a lot of little things, and the action was, I liked it as far as the action that we got,
Yeah.
Solid, the special effects. I mean, like, considering like how they did Frog Lady, she came off as being convincing, maybe more likable and enjoyable than, a Gungan that people hated from episode 1.
Yeah. or just some lady that hisses every episode.
You're talking about Prisoner.
Prisoner, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you've done it like 6 times now, lady. Give it a break. I know I enjoyed the episode. Like I think the next episode we're gonna have a lot more meat to it because you can see from some of the very quick shots we've seen that they are successful in rendezvousing with Frog Lady's husband. Yeah. You see the back of them walking down like a crowded street.
So
go ahead.
So yeah, no, I mean this was one of those things that I remember seeing that tank full of eggs in that shot. So that was one of those moments where, as I was watching this episode, I was like, oh, okay, I can see where this is headed. And I didn't know how far we would get into the story or where that would go, but I do remember seeing the tank with the eggs. So in that trailer, I don't think I had connected it that like that's exactly what it was. I just remember seeing that little, because it's such a specific thing, like that tank with the eggs, So, but yeah, we see the back of her and her husband, who is of a different color. He's kind of more of a turquoise bluey kind of color. So it's weird because like from the back, their heads look like kind of brains almost. So
yeah.
But yeah, the next episode, I think teases the fact that Mando's going to get some unexpected help. So, and from what we know from the trailer, that's also when we had the mystery woman that showed up, who we were not quite sure, how they're going to connect or fit into place. But so yeah, exciting stuff. I assume that we're going to get some more Mandalorian action, perhaps. We're not going to Mon Cala, which was a place that we had kind of speculated. This water planet looks like that's probably going to be Trask. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. Anything else that you can think of that we missed here? We really
no. That was everything I had written down. Like I said, it just wasn't a lot of plot, but we still got a lot of good action. And then now we could just make a guess of who the robe lady is, but
Trapper Wolf's X-wing features the words in Orabesh rescue. That was the only other trivia note that I had. So
okay,
yeah, that was just in my notes here as I'm looking through everything. So, I don't know. I still don't know who that mystery woman's going to be. I mean, I think we speculated, like, is this an Ahsoka projection? It doesn't seem like it's Sabine, because Sabine almost, at least from the Rebels, appears to have more of an Asian descent look to her. Mm-hmm. So, but I don't know. I mean, I'm down. I mean, if it's following what season 1 has done, season 3 or chapter 3 from season 1 was a standout episode where we got a lot of action and we got a lot of like satisfying like story plot moving forward. So, hoping that stays true. So, other than that, I always enjoy talking Star Wars with you, Nick. Hopefully one of these days, our other
co-host
will join us. Maybe not. If not, I hope that everybody's enjoyed everything that we've had to talk about with this episode. And again, if you like what we do, if you like this show, send us an email at theforceswelldone@gmail.com. Rate and review us on iTunes. That always helps us out. And at this point, I'd like to thank some special patrons that make this show possible. We are part of the Jay and Jack Network. So if you like this show, you can go over to jayandjack.com, click on the patron link there, check out some of the other shows. But if you click on the patron link, you can donate at different levels. And we also have some patron specials. But there are certain patrons that make this show possible. I'd like to thank them. And as always, I work so hard to come up with these names. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Excuse me. me. I'd like to thank Taxi Service to Trask.
He's not a taxi service.
Eckhart Richter's Razor Crest Wreckage.
I like that. That's a good one.
Oh, thanks. Frozen Spider Egg Ed. Dr. Mandible Maggie. New Republic Justice Joanne. And lest we forget, Frog Egg Greg. Thanks for doing what you do. Hopefully I have some better names next week. This was a great show. It was 1 in a million. What do you think?
Definitely.